Welcome to TiffDoesLoans podcast. So today I have Aristotle Kumpis with Excel 1031.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
Good, Tiffany. How are you doing? It's great to be here.
Good. Thank you so much for coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that we met because 1031 is, everyone's kind of like heard about it and like, I feel like everybody knows about it, but like nobody really knows about it. There's so much, everyone's like, oh yeah, you could do that. But all the ins and outs, unless unless that's like your niche, I feel like it's just kind of like put on the back burner. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that is huge right now for 1031 exchange. And we can go more into this like strategy later. But in California, how people are selling and then like going to buy maybe multiple in another state. That's like a huge strategy, right? Kind of using like 1031. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and we'll go back to that, but why don't you kind of start by like telling us your journey, like a little bit of background, how you got into real estate and how you kind of found your home here in that 1031.
Yeah. Okay. How far back do you want me to go?
Well, you've been in a couple decades, right?
I have,
like
20, So
20 years?
So I practice. I actually, I'm a licensed real estate agent here in California. I got licensed in 2007 or 8, which is
okay. So that's when it went down.
Not the best time to get involved with it, but I got licensed, and I prior to that, I should say, as a kid, I would always go with my dad in his car to go collect rent. He had fourplexes and stuff like that, right? And I didn't understand it at the time what he was doing, what I was doing in the car, going down to these like kind of a crummy.
Imagine you got to go and drive and like pick up the rent, like everybody Venmos now. So it's like you never think about that.
Yes, this is back in the 80s, and so. Late 80s. And so anyway, so maybe that's why I kind of got the bug for investment properties. Yeah. But then I got licensed in 2007, 2008, and I cut my teeth on investment properties. I started working with a local broker here who specialized in like 2 to 10 units.
Okay.
Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach areas and whatnot, Orange County. And then the financial crash happened. And so that wasn't very good for me, for my work. So then I ended up working for a company that specialized in helping investors build portfolios of rental properties in different states. And I really learned and I really liked that. And then I started investing myself. I have several single-family home rental properties across different states outside of California. And I just loved it. And then I was helping people do 1031 exchanges at some point when I was coaching, and I understood what that is. And then I got an opportunity a while back to work for a 1031 exchange company. And I said, hey, I think this is going to be a great piece for me to get into. And I love it. And I love helping people. That's my main core is I love helping and I love educating people on just whatever I'm doing, but I love it.
Love that. No, I know. I love your passion about that.
Yeah.
Can I... what would be kind of your favorite state
to invest in?
Now, because right now in California, do you rent them out to like a bunch of tenants? So actually like holds, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're buying holds.
So does it scare you a little bit out here? Like, do you kind of prefer some other states? Is there one in particular that you're more leaning towards?
Yeah. So, well, in the beginning of the podcast, you're talking about how people are selling their property here in California and moving out. We're seeing that all the time because landlord laws are getting worse and worse here in California, and people are starting to notice, hey, my returns are lower. They're lower. The tenant is, if I have to evict somebody, it takes a year. Yeah. So people are going to places like Texas, Tennessee, Florida. Just a lot more landlord-friendly states. I have some properties in Alabama.
Okay.
And it's a very slow-moving state.
I have friends that love that market.
Yeah, Montgomery, Huntsville, Birmingham.
That's where they were at, Montgomery.
Yeah, those are great. And then Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, parts of Texas like the Dallas, outer rings of Dallas and things like that. Great, yeah. So it's just, not only is it less expensive, but it's just the returns are better and the landlord laws are way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have to like evict someone or, and a home out here, they could sell one and get like 3 or 4.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I have a client right now doing a 1031 exchange. Okay. He's selling a property, just closed yesterday in Laguna Niguel. and I won't disclose the price or anything, but he sold it, and he's buying 2 or 3 properties in Texas
Nice.
and Houston. And the reason why he sold out here was because his HOA skyrocketed over the years to almost $1,000 a month.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's like, I'm not making any
That's
cash flow,
Orange County.
negative cash flow. And the equity he had in that property, he put it to better use in a different state. Now he's going to be getting probably about $1,200 a month cash flow, net cash flow on each property.
Like each one.
Each one.
And they're probably massive. Like the
$300,000 houses, you know, probably, you know, they're cookie
Yeah.
cutter $300,000 houses,
Yeah.
but like Texas, there's no state income tax there, very landlord friendly.
Yeah.
So he's ecstatic. So he's happy.
That's that I do love that market. That's where I want to go. I was leaning towards an Airbnb, but now I'm kind of like, you just never know if they're going to yank it, you
That's
know,
right.
in
That's
the
right.
area. So it's just not the best FAR business plan
Yeah.
at this moment. And then, okay, so for our audience that doesn't know, can you just kind of explain? We've kind of like talked around it, but what a 1031 exchange is.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So our company is what's called a qualified intermediary.
Okay.
1031 exchange qualified intermediary, QI for short. Another term people call it is facilitator or accommodator. You might hear those terms are interchangeable. But you have to work with a company like ours because we are a third-party neutral company.
Okay.
So the way it works is when you sell a property that's being used for investment, business, or trade purposes, that's
Yep.
what qualifies for an exchange. Those, once you close on that, escrow would wire those funds to your 1031 exchange account. The moment that you touch those funds, 1031 exchange is void. You can't do one. So you have to go to an account set up that we set up for the client. So that's what we do.
They can't even have any access. It's because it has to just be.
Correct.
They don't want any like funny business going on.
Correct. Yeah, you can't touch the funds or anything like that. It's kind of like an escrow account in
Yeah.
a way, very similar to that. But what we do as a QI is we educate before. We try to educate before you actually put your property in the market. That way you understand how the process is going to work. And then we make sure you're following the guidelines because we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I think about the rules and the guidelines because there are some strict guidelines you have to adhere to when doing an exchange. So we want to make sure that you're following the rules, and then just make sure that you know the documents are correct and everything is signed and set up the way it is, so you can defer your 1031 exchange. So, or your capital gains tax, I should say. So basically, the reason why someone would want to do a 1031 exchange is to defer capital gains, right? That's the whole point of doing it. Now, I said earlier, the property has to be used for investment, business, or trade purposes. So it could be a single-family home or a condo that's being rented out. It could be a commercial warehouse or commercial building, a warehouse, medical building.
Apartment building.
Building. It can even be like, let's say you own a restaurant. Let's say you own the property and you have a restaurant operating in it. You can actually sell that building, and 1031 exchange that into whatever you want. So the only 3 things really that you cannot 1031 exchange into are your primary home. Okay, so you can't exchange your primary home, and you can't exchange into your primary home. A second home or vacation home does not qualify either. However, if your intent is to rent it out most of the time, like a vacation home, like you mentioned in a short-term rental, like let's say you buy a Big Bear cabin up in Big Bear.
Like it has to be super vacation-y.
It does,
Like-
but it has to be rented most of the year. Like you can't just buy it and be like, I'm gonna rent this out as a short-term rental and do an exchange into it. But then you live in it most of the time. You can get audited for that, and that would be no good.
So and do they follow up on those things?
Well, audits are random, right?
Yeah.
So it depends, but you do have to report the income, and if you're not reporting that income after the exchange, they could somehow see that, right? They will see that. And then the other property class that you cannot 1031 is a flip. So for all the people listening that are doing flips, unfortunately, you cannot 1031 exchange those. But
Does that look like ever to be on the horizon?
No, because
No.
that's short-term capital gains. Yeah. So basically, the property that qualifies for a 1031 is going to be a property that's held for at least a year. 2 years is better, minimum, for a rental property, for example.
Okay.
So if we're talking about an investment property, whether that's a townhome or residential home or even an apartment property, it has to be a rental property for at least 1 year, 2 years minimum.
Why is the minimum? Is that something like the 1 or 2 years? Like, what
Good
is
question.
the significance of that?
Yeah, well, so the IRS doesn't really have a time frame on how long you need to hold it before you do a 1031, but most accountants and CPAs will tell you, hey, 1 year of tax return or 2 years is better of tax return, showing that it's been a rental property or income property. I had someone recently call me a few days ago, and they said, hey, I'm trying to rent my primary home out. It's been 3 months, I haven't rented it, but I want to do a 1031. That does not qualify.
No, because it's their primary.
Right, but
they would
trying
have
to
to put it in, but if they would have to like go through me, they could put it into, refinance it into an investment.
Well, no, they don't need to refinance it. They just need to rent it out for basically a minimum of a year.
Okay, so then after, if they have it rented, even though it's listed as a primary, but as long as they've had it rented, then they'll still be able to do that.
Correct.
Okay, I mean, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, so
You just put all these light bulbs in,
yeah.
in people's minds in California. Yeah, because I would think that you would have to completely switch it. Like I said,
no, you don't need to do that.
Okay, that's good.
Because it happens all the time where someone becomes an accidental landlord. Let's say they own a house and then they need to move out of state for their job or move into a different area. And they might think, you know what, I'm not going to sell this house because maybe one day I'll move into it, but I want to rent it out. Well, if they rent it out for those years and then at some point they decide, hey, I want to sell it. Because here's what happens. When you own a rental property for 5, 10, 20 years, you're going to have a large capital gain. And capital gain is not what some people get this confused. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
Capital gains is what is composed of a couple things. So the way you calculate this, and we have some calculators on our website, but you take what you bought the property for. So let's say you bought the property 10 years ago for $100,000.
Okay.
That's your basis, okay? And usually over those 5 or 10 years or however long you've owned it, you're going to depreciate that every year. Your accountant should depreciate that property every year so you get tax benefits for doing that, okay, when it's a rental property. So that when you depreciate it, that lowers your basis. So let's say it goes from $100,000 to $50,000, okay? That would be your adjusted basis. And let's say you didn't do any work to the house, but that's your adjusted basis would be $50,000. But now let's say the house is worth $500,000 10 years later, right? So $50,000 to $500,000, you subtract 500 minus your adjusted basis, which was 50, we said. That means if you sold that property without doing a 1031, you'd have $450,000 capital gains tax. Capital gains tax is average about 30%. So do the math, 30% of $450,000. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you have to pay tax on. So why would you want to do that, right? I don't want to pay any more taxes than I have to, so why not do a 1031 exchange? So this is really crucial for people to understand how to calculate that. Some people think that capital gains is how much equity you have in the property. It's not that.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a misconception.
It is. It's really just about what you paid for it minus depreciation plus any capital improvements. And that's whatever that is. Subtract it from the net sales price, and that gives you your basis. And again, we have, your capital gains tax. And we have some calculators on our website that will help people determine that. But once you determine that, you're like, okay, wow, like I have a high capital gains. I mean, some people have $1 million gain, and if you had to pay 30% of that, that's $300,000 that you have to pay.
Much.
Right, and we live in an amazing state of California, which has high state tax, right? So us, New York, New Jersey, some of these high state taxes, you could be paying 35 to even 40%. So it can be even higher. So if you don't do a 1031, you're going to pay that tax.
You're pay a lot.
So when you do a 1031, though, again, you're selling the investment property and you're buying what the IRS calls a like-kind property, which is another investment property. It doesn't have to
move it on over.
You're just basically moving the proceeds over. You're basically what happened. You're selling your one property. You're moving the proceeds into your 1031 exchange account. And you're using those proceeds to buy another rental property. And as long as you do that through a QI, like a company like ours, then you can defer your capital gains tax. I'm going to say defer because you don't eliminate. They're not gone forever. Yeah. You will have to pay them once you eventually sell that property. But most people...
Yeah, but most of them are generational. You know, they're thinking, I mean, it's a long game.
Mm-hmm. They're going to want a 1031 over and over again.
Your kids are going to have to worry about it.
Right. Well, here's the best thing about this. So let's say you 1031 over and over, and then you pass away at some point, and your kids inherit that property. Well, if they don't want that to be a landlord, they don't want to own an investment property anymore, went up, but maybe they don't want to. When they go to sell that property, they won't pay the capital gains tax that you would have had to pay back in the day. They pay what's called the step-up basis, which is what they pay, basically what the appraised value of the property is at that time. So they pay taxes on the sale at that time, which is extremely low compared to what you would have to
What
pay.
they would have been. So it's good.
It's a generational wealth building tool.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That is good. Yeah, I would think that it would be the other way.
No, it's great.
Because I feel like if it's like a primary, like, I feel like we're hit. Like if I inherited it.
Yes.
I feel like we're being hit more for taxes when we inherit it. On like a primary, not a 1030.
Well, in a primary, it's different, yeah.
Yeah.
But in a investment property,
yeah.
for example, if they've been doing exchanges over the years, then the kids would not have whoever inherits the property.
Smart.
Yeah, just wouldn't have to pay all those, because what happens is, like, let's say you 1031 into 3 properties over like 30 years, whatever. Every 10 years you do one.
Yeah.
When you go to sell that property, those capital gains from the first and second properties, they carry over to the third one, and you sell the property. It's not like they're just gone, and then you pay, and your accountant will have to help you determine what tax you have to pay. I just say just keep doing 1031s. If you're going to keep buying investment properties and keep investing, then just to keep doing 1031s.
Just keep doing them, and then eventually it will even out for your kids, or if you want to do it.
There's a morbid saying, it's called swap till you drop.
Yeah.
Because
so basically just do them till you die.
Swap till you're dead, right. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's true. But to keep doing that,
till you drop.
Don't pay the taxes, and then when your kids get the properties, they pay a lot less taxes. It's a very good strategy.
So you're doing it for them.
Exactly.
For the kids.
And I mean, there's a reason why.
Well, really, yeah.
There's a reason why people in real estate make a lot of money, because they know these they know these loopholes, and they know these tools. They use them.
Yeah. No, 100%. I want to. Okay, let's go over some common mistakes, and I love to debunk some of these misconceptions.
Okay.
So what's a common mistake that a lot of people may use or make when they're switching? Because there has to be like a certain time frame, or like what's the most common one that you see that it's like kind of messes up the deal? Maybe in the process.
Yeah, it's a great question. So a couple that I can think of. One would be just not preparing ahead of time. So like I said earlier, I love to educate people.
Yeah.
And so many times I'll have agents that I talk to, and they're like, yeah, my client's doing a 1031, but we'll call you when we get into escrow. I'm like, okay, do they have any questions? We'll just call you when we get into escrow. I'm like, okay. And then escrow opens at some point, and then they call me, and the client's like, hey, I want to do a reverse exchange, and I already have another property lined up that I'm closing on like next week. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. You haven't even set up an account yet. A lot of things going on here. And so they kind of get ahead, and they think they can do things when they haven't even closed on their property yet. So I see that all the time. People just kind of get ahead of it, but almost too ahead, or they don't know where they want to go. As far as like when they sell their property, they're like, I'm not sure what I want to buy, and I might buy, I mean, they never thought about buying out of state maybe.
Yeah.
So just having everything lined up, I think, ahead of time, and knowing where you're going to be going is crucial, because so many people will call me when they're in escrow, and they're kind of like frantically going around.
No, and now you're on a time limit, right?
Well, not until you close, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Yeah, but there is time limits on when you can buy your new replacement property. But that would be one thing I see a lot, where people just, they don't call, or they don't think they need to set up any or talk with anyone yet before the exchange, before they sell their property. By the way, just so you know, the exchange account has to be created before they close escrow. Okay,
that's something that, you know, even if your realtor was like, no, we'll just call you later, like, again, they should be guiding them to you.
Yeah, and
you know, that's big.
Well, so the account,
I like to have everything set up, so it's like, let's all work together. Yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean,
or at least ask you, hey, this is our plan. Like, you're the expert. You know, like, this is our plan. What to do? I feel like if I would do that with a realtor, or, you know, whichever. Like, hey, we were thinking about doing this. Like, does that fit in the box of like your expertise, and then you
Right.
can at least just validate it. But
Right.
yeah, I feel like also that's kind of shame on them for guiding the client
Yeah.
not to get the information first.
Well,
So
and-
look out for that.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of agents don't they don't do 1031s a lot, so they might have done one like 10 years ago or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
whatever, and so they think, and nothing's really changed with the IRS guidelines with the 1031, but maybe they forgot like how it all works. But yeah, the account has to be set up before you close escrow. We set up an account the same day.
Okay.
Usually it's very quick, but that would be one thing. Other thing I would say would just not be talking, maybe not talking with the right qualified intermediary. You're in the service industry too. You're a lender, right? So like, how crucial it is to give your clients excellent service, right?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 lenders out there. There's 1,000 qualified intermediaries out there. Well, maybe not 1,000, but there's a lot of us out there too. And it's all about service. And so sometimes people are hard to get a hold of. I'm not saying call me in the middle of the night, but like, people have my cell phone. They can text me, call me anytime, email me anytime they have questions. And I think that's crucial because there are larger qualified intermediary companies out there that are they're large and they're harder to get a hold of people sometimes. And I think when you're doing something crucial like deferring your tax and anything real estate related, you want to be able to get a hold of your contact right away.
100%.
So talking with the right person, how do you find that out? I think by having a conversation initially with the person, it's like you. It's like, how do you separate yourself from other lenders? I mean, people are going to talk with you. You're going to be the expert. You know what you're talking about. You're experienced. And you convey that across to your clients. And when you do that, then people have a little bit of trust in you. You start building trust with them, So I think that's important because, believe it or not, there are some online, just like lenders, there are some online platforms where people can just go on and think
I feel
they
like
don't need to
now
interact
would
with
be
people.
the worst time for that. I've been telling so many people, like, don't even go online. Like, try to find somebody or like who go on your social media, watch people's videos. But picking the team right now, I always tell everyone, is like the most crucial because it's absolutely going to affect your whole process.
That's right.
Your process is going to be what it is. Depending on you as a borrower, it might be harder than some. But usually I will let them know, like, hey, we might have some hiccups here, due to credit, due to this, XYZ. But it's, if you have like a team that like I'm letting know the expectations and like putting it together. But if you're just going to go through the process with somebody on the internet or like in one of those big systems, everything, like I always call it what is that? Just like a big machine. Yeah. It's just like
a mill.
Yeah, just like running through, you're not going to have the contact, like not how my clients have this, I am on top of everything with them. Like, hey, look at your email. Like anything that they're getting, we're going over and I'm walking through the next.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's huge.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. You said that you must get like your intermediate before they close. So what if they close and they come to you after? Like, what if it's closed?
Can't do a 1031.
So then they get all the gains.
Right.
They don't get to. They have to pay it.
Right, because again, the money once they receive those funds from escrow, it's called construction
it's like
of receipt.
They touch it, even if it doesn't.
Goes to your bank account. It's they can no longer do a 1031.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, that's a big one. Yeah.
It is,
So if somebody was like, and imagine if somebody got guided by like, oh, we'll do this and then we'll do that.
Or maybe they just thought, maybe their agent's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out or whatever.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
It's
don't
very
important.
Do that.
It's very
now
important.
We know.
It's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, because then then you're stuck with all of those, and that's huge.
It's like imagine a client going up to you and they're in escrow and they haven't even been pre-qualified yet. You're like, what? I mean, that would never happen. But
but from I've gotten it to the point where I was at an open house and they gave me all their stuff. They're like, oh, we want to make an offer. We've been approved. And I was like stoked because I was like, okay, cool. Like sent me everything. And 2 out of the 4 incomes that they sent me, I was like, these aren't even like, I won't to the guidelines and everything I won't be able to use these.
Yeah.
And I even did due diligence, and I have like an underwriting team. I was like, just to make sure, I'm going to send everything. And I was like, no, I was right. Like 2 out of 4. So they were shopping and putting in offers without, whoever gave them that pre-approval did not do due diligence. So it is happening.
Yeah.
It is still happening that people are going out there. And I actually, they just walked into that open house. So I didn't know that realtor, but she did give me her card, and I did call her and give her at least a little due diligence where I'm like, hey, I was like, I just want to let you know, whoever gave you that pre-approval, I don't know if that's your guy, a random guy, they didn't do their job. So you need to go back to them and like,
Wow.
you need to go back to them. And I would just, check, because
Right.
she was driving them around houses and all that stuff, because technically somebody told them that they were.
That's
approved.
unfortunate. That's kind of.
But it does happen now.
It does happen.
If
yeah.
you go, because that's why you have to take that extra step, like you're saying, and really kind of interview that person, like have that interaction to where you're actually going to, get the knowledge up front and let us talk and show you our experience
Right.
and like what we can do. Because if you get with the wrong person who isn't doing, even just to, it's so much more than just, my job is so much more than just telling you what you approve for.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, but a lot of people do that. It will be more transactional. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and in our line of work, it's like we love repeat business, and those clients are going to come back to refinance from you or do other loans or refer people. Same with us. We have people that will exchange with us over the years, or maybe they refer their family to us, and that's what we want. We don't want to just do a loan or have one transaction and then just be done with it. We want to build a relationship. We're in the customer service industry. That's how I look at it, and we want our clients to come back to work with us again
100%.
because they love us. So
yeah.
So, do you want to talk about the timelines for the
Yes.
1031 exchange?
Yes. What is that? Kind of
Okay.
like explain, like map one out for us.
Okay. So basically, let's say you have a rental property, townhome, condo, whatever, residential property. It does qualify for a 1031 exchange. 2 things I wanted to note real quickly for the exchange, the requirements. So in order to defer up to 100% of your capital gains tax, there's a few things that you have to meet, or you have to do. First of all, you have to purchase the new property that you're going to purchase. You have to purchase equal to or greater than the net sales price. So let's say you're selling a property for $500,000. That's the sales price. After commissions, closing costs, all that stuff, let's say it's $470,000, right? So $30,000 in closing costs. So that $470,000, that means that you need to purchase a new property or multiple properties that equal $470,000 or more. Okay,
that's a good one.
Second thing is you have to reinvest all the proceeds. So let's say you netted $150,000 after your loan was paid off, everything. That $150,000 would go into your exchange account, and then you have to use all $150,000 of that. Okay. Now, any difference between the net sales price or the proceeds? Let's say instead of buying the property for $470,000, you bought it for $450,000. Well, that $20,000 difference will be subject to capital gains tax. Not a lot, but you will have to pay a little bit of capital gains tax on that when tax time comes. That is, and then same with the proceeds. Let's say you wanted to keep $30,000 or $50,000 of your proceeds and not exchange that, you can, but that will, whatever you don't use to exchange it to your new property will be subject to capital gains.
You will have to be taxed.
Correct. Yes, you have to pay capital gains tax on that. Yeah. So some people will come up to me and they'll say, "I want to keep $50,000," and we have our document that we set up has a space in there where you can put if you want us to withhold any money from your exchange, so you can just keep it in your cash, but you will have to pay tax on that when the time comes. Some people they're okay with it.
Yeah, I feel like if you plan for it, sometimes it works. If you want to send your kid to college or something and exchange, or it's almost like a way to do a refinance without doing it.
Yeah. So then the other thing is, so if you have debt on the property, like a loan, you don't have to replace. This is a big common thing I hear out there from people too. They say, "Well, I hear with the 1031 exchange, I have to get a new loan on the new property if I had a loan before." not entirely true. The IRS says that you need to replace the value of that debt, or
Okay.
whatever, however you do it. Whether you get a new loan, okay. Let's say the loan. Let's say you had on the relinquished property, the property that you're selling or that you sold. Let's say you owed $100,000 on that. Well, on the new property, if you say, you know what, I don't want to get a new loan on that property, that's okay. But the difference is $100,000. That means you have to bring $100,000 of your own cash to,
Okay.
instead of getting a loan. Because I did a transaction recently where a person didn't want to get a loan for $280,000, I think, and they had the cash in their bank. They said, on my new replacement property, I don't want to get a loan. That's okay, but you have to cover the value of that debt.
Okay.
Yeah, so something to think about. But if you do the math, if you purchase equal to or greater and you use all your proceeds, there's going to be a gap in there anyway. So you either have to get a loan or you bring more cash to the table. So those are things that you have to keep in mind to defer 100% of your capital gains tax. The timeline works like this. You sell your property, let's say it closes today.
Okay.
You will have 45 calendar days from today to identify your new property.
Only identify.
Identify, not to close, just to identify. When you set up an account with us or any QI in that matter, we send you an identification form. It's electronic, and there's spaces for addresses. Okay, you have to write the physical address down on the property that you are going to identify to replace, and then the rough value of that property. So you have 45 days. Once 45 days goes by, you cannot add or subtract. You cannot add to that list. So let's say you're selling one property here in Orange County, you're buying one and another one in Orange County, whatever. You can list numerous properties down on that list and only close on one. But if for some reason the properties you listed either got sold or whatever,
they sell? Yeah.
well, the way you should do it is you want to put the property under contract first and then put that on your identification list. You don't want to just go out and put like a whole bunch of properties on your list hoping that you're going to get under contract. You should have an idea and submit an offer first and then be like, oh, we got our offer accepted.
100%. That gives me so much anxiety just thinking of like people like that sounds like a terrible idea to me. Like I would have to go. Absolutely. You should at least be making sure that they're interested in you, that you're probably maybe like one or two that you're going back and forth with, but just like identify it and put it down. Like, I feel like there are people like that out there that just like, oh yeah, everything like
could be.
I am very like I like to plan and I'm very structured. So like sometimes it's just so breezy and just like, oh yeah, like I believe that things will work out too, but like let's try to make it work out also.
Correct. Yeah. So
let's put it on.
Yeah. This kind of it gets people a little nervous about this whole 45-day thing, but typically, when your property is either in escrow or maybe even before escrow, you might already have a property identified or maybe an offer accepted. I mean, so it happens. Yeah. It happens really quickly usually. But yeah, you don't want to just talk to your agent and say, "Hey, these 3 or 4 look good. Let's just write them down and we'll make offers." You can, but then what I'm telling you is that after the 45 day, on midnight of the 45th day, if you don't have anything written down on there, or you have stuff that you want to add, you can no longer alter that list. Unfortunately, it's our job to make sure that you don't touch that list after the 45 days. So then you
have to take one of those. What if they all did 3 sell?
Well, then yeah, you won't be able to do their 1031 exchange.
Then it's done.
Well, then
so
unfortunately.
No exceptions.
But my role is to make sure, like, so what I do, talking about customer service earlier, what I really strive for is every week to 2 weeks after you close, I'm always just texting you or emailing you, hey, have you found anything yet? Yeah. Have you identified? Okay, great. Fill out the identification form. So I'm always checking in with them, making sure, and that's important because I do hear, you're talking about mistakes. Another mistake I see is where someone will close on their property and then the QI just disappears and doesn't really follow up and make sure that you're. And
then right before the 45 days.
I've had people say, oh, that last company I worked with, they ruined my 1031. I said, what happened? And they said, well, they the 45 day went by and they didn't remind me, and I just totally forgot. I lost track. It's terrible, right?
Yeah.
We send out like an auto email every 3 days or 5 days, I think it is, for that identification form. So every 3 to 5 days, you're getting an email from us saying, hey, reminder, reminder, reminder. And I'm calling you. So there's no way you can forget to do that.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's good.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything should be automated at this point.
It is, yeah. So so getting back to the timeline, so then you have an additional 135 days on top of the 45 to close. So it's 180 days total to close in the exchange. Okay, should be ample enough time to close on that.
Even out here with because I feel like that would be another kind of stressful thing in this. A lot of places right now, homes are sitting for like 30, 45 days or plus. So have you seen this market has it pushed back the 1031 at all? Like, does it really affect it because they have been sitting longer, or does it kind of make it better because then they just kind of close on it? Like, they'll make they have more negotiations, especially if it's been sitting.
Yeah, good question. It's not really affecting how they're closing.
Okay.
It's great in a way because the speed of the market, at least in Orange County, for example, if you're going to buy something here, the speed of the market is pretty slow. It's slowed down a lot. So if you're trying to identify and make offers, it's a lot easier. Once things pick up, rates are coming down a little bit. Once over the next year or two, once rates are coming down even more, the market will pick back up. And then you'll see multiple offers on houses.
And then it will be harder.
It'll be a little bit more, yeah. So even in other markets where we have clients that are buying in Texas, they're closing. I mean, there's offers on those houses, and they're closing really quickly before you can get your hands on them sometimes. I will say a really nice thing about our company is we don't just do exchanges, but we have partnerships with companies like lenders like yourself. We also have a partnership with a company that offers properties in places like Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and some other various states where you can identify very quickly, very easily. They have properties
and then
ready
just
to
get
go.
it closed.
Yeah, they have brand new construction homes, multifamily, whatever you're looking for. So it's really not that difficult if you're going to look out of state. We've got kind of a great partnership with the company. So those are the main timelines that people have to understand. To go through. So the hardest part, I think, for people is just the 45-day window. Now, there's something called the reverse exchange. Have you ever heard of a reverse exchange?
I have not.
Okay. So a reverse exchange is doing the opposite. So instead of selling your property and then buying your replacement property, you would buy your replacement property first and then sell your relinquished property. You mentioned how homes are taking a little bit longer to sell out here.
Yeah.
What if someone is selling their rental property here and all of a sudden they come across a really good deal that they think would be a great replacement property, but they're like, I haven't even sold my home yet here. How do I buy that one? Well, a reverse exchange could work for you.
Okay, that's really good.
Yeah, and so you buy your replacement property, then you have 180 days total to close on your relinquished property, the property you want to sell, right? The trick is, so on the replacement property, people say, well, the funds that I was going to get from my relinquished property, I was going to use for my new replacement property. I don't have the 200,000 funds. How do I buy my replacement property? They can get a bridge loan. They can use your services and get what's called a non-recourse bridge loan for 6 months. They can buy that replacement property, get a loan on it. Unfortunately, bridge loans are expensive. You know, I think they're at 9% right now as we're talking in September here.
Roughly. Yeah, I don't even think that they were still really. They might be a little lower at
8 or 9%, give or take. 9. But you're going to have that holding cost. So let's say it's a $1 million house that you need to get an 8 or 9% loan on for 6 months or 4 months, whatever it might be. You're going to have those holding costs, to cover. So it gets expensive. But if the property the replacement property, if you just really don't want to pass on the opportunity, it makes sense for you, then
100%.
Do that. Yeah. So we do reverse exchanges. There's also, I won't get too much in depth, but there's also what's called an improvement exchange.
Okay.
That's where you can buy a replacement property, use your proceeds to improve on it. Let's say you buy a burned down house, but you have a vision and you're like, hey, I'm going to make this like a fourplex or whatever. You can buy the property and then use the funds to improve the property. However, you have 180 days to make those improvements.
So, and that would be tough.
Imagine in California where the permitting process takes like 1,000 years, right? It takes forever.
I feel like, that would be, that just sounds so stressful, but
But
if
people
you're
do it.
experienced, and that's the thing, it's
Sure.
like,
Yeah, good point.
of course, like if you're experienced and you already got your team, like you're in and out of there.
Yeah.
Like they can definitely, or a lot of these investors have their own companies, like general contracting companies.
Sure. Yeah. If you know what you're doing,
them,
experience.
yes.
Yeah, if you're experienced, like you said, but for
Yeah.
but for the person who's never done an exchange before, probably not.
Probably not. Let's do the exchange
No.
on your first one as you like build your first vision.
Right, just do the regular exchange or the forward exchange
Yeah.
is what's called. So the two most common we see are the forward exchange, which is like what we just talked about, where you sell your property, you buy a new property,
Yeah.
excuse me, or you do a reverse exchange. By the way, too, just so you know, when you sell let's say you own a single family home, you don't have to do an exchange on a single family home.
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah.
You can exchange into vacant land. A lot of people don't know you can buy raw land. You can. You can exchange into
And then build.
well, no, just purchase.
Okay.
So let's say you have a single family home out here, and you're like, you know what, my wife is a doctor. I want, and we're really into medical. We want to buy a medical building and rent
Okay.
it out to other doctors, right? You can sell your rental property here and do a 1031 exchange into a medical building.
Okay.
Any property that's used for investment, business, or trade purposes
Nice.
qualifies. You can even purchase oil rights, like oil. Like let's say you buy land that has an oil well on there, right? That qualifies because it's a trade. So there's a lot of things again that you can 1031 into. But the point I want to make is that it's not one for one. So like you mentioned earlier, someone has $1 million house here in California. They want to sell it and buy 3 in Texas. You can do that. There's no limit.
Yeah.
It's just the limit is how much funds you have, the proceeds to do it. And then the other thing what was I gonna mention? The like-kind rule, we operate in all 50 states, so it
Okay.
doesn't have to be in the same state. It can be out of state. It can be in any state you
Love
want.
that.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing information. And I finally feel like I kind of understand it.
A little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit more. No, 100%. Those I do have some people going from California to Arizona. They're still waiting. They've talked about the markets. So we'll kind of wrap up here. Final question: how are you telling your borrowers to like proceed, like how the market has been? A lot of people have been on the sidelines. So because they would be the ones, basically they're going to be the sellers. They're going to be listing, but they're also going to be buying. So right now our buyers are seeing some really good deals, but then listing, they're waiting until they can list for higher. So how are you kind of like guiding them right now, or like what is that best action plan like for the ones that are waiting?
Yeah.
And we're going into winter, so I
Right.
feel like even more pump the brakes.
Sure. Well, that's a great question. Since I'm an investor myself,
Yeah.
I know how to run the numbers on properties and kind of how to evaluate to some
Yeah.
extent, to a good extent. And as you know, interest rates are not everything. It's not
Yeah.
the entire picture of the investment property. There are people that don't want to sell because they said, well, I don't want to get rid of my 3% rate. Okay, but if you're negative cash flow and it's not going to improve for 5 years,
Yeah.
you need to do something. Don't get married to don't be married to the rate.
Yeah.
You've heard that before, that term, right? And I'm sure you say the same thing to clients. It's like, it's not about the rate, it's about what it's going to do for you. So if you're let's say you're retiring or you're getting close to retirement, you need more cash flow, then the goal would be to sell and buy something that's going to give you more cash flow. And so I tell people, I'm not an agent, so I can't tell people, hey, you should sell your property and do a 1031. But I will tell you that, based on what they would tell me, if the numbers are not making sense and they have a lot of equity trapped in this property and they're getting a really low return, there could be better options for them out there. And so all I would say to people is that if you have an investment property and maybe the interest rates are stopping because you tell yourself, if I buy a new property, the interest rate's going to be 6% versus 3%. But what if the return was higher than what you have now? Then would that make the difference? And the answer is usually yes. It's like if I have a 1% return here and I can get a 7 or 8% somewhere else, even though the interest rate was higher, would I do it? And the answer would be absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 1031 1031 exchanging one of my personal investment properties because it's got a lot of deferred maintenance on it coming up. And I think I have like a 5% interest rate or something. But I'm going to be getting into a new construction house where there's no maintenance for a number of years. Interest rate's going to be probably higher, but I'm going to be getting into a newer product, and that's going to make me happier, I think, in the long run.
So yeah, cash flow.
Yeah, in cash flow. Yeah. So I would just say those are just some things to think about to get off the sideline. But don't worry about the interest rate. Worry about from an investment standpoint, like what kind of return you can get.
Numbers.
Yeah, and we can help run numbers for people too.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like we have had to get a little more creative in this market. But I like to do that for my clients too, is to flip it. Like, don't just look at the payment. Let's see what you're actually, like for the refinance. I had that same pushback. That's, well, I'm in a 3%. Yeah, but you guys are paying 2 car payments. You have 6 credit cards, and yes, if we move you from a 3 to a 7, it'll go up maybe $350, but you could pay off your debt and you're going to be saving $1,000. So it's like you have to, but it's up to us to flip that and do that math, which it sounds like what you also do, like, but I know it sounds higher, but really you're going to be cash flowing a lot more over here, and you're going to be actually, creating the more income throughout the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say, like, every so often, if you're an investor listening, every so often, if you have properties, every year you should be evaluating and looking at your property and thinking, okay, like how much equity do I have in here? And is that equity really working the hardest for me? And if it's not, maybe it's time to get that equity out and put it to work and do an exchange and not have to, deal with that anymore. So, in your industry too, it's like you said, you have clients who might have a lot of equity locked up in there, but they're so fixated on the interest rate. It's like, look how much you can pay off.
But you're getting sucked dry out of all these, all the credit cards.
Exactly.
Because the credit cards are, at like
22%.
Oh, well, I was going to say 28%, like in between, high 20%. So if you cut that, and sure, you might be at a 7%, but we call it a blended rate. So that's also why I open up people's eyes to when they have like 2 people paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
You actually have two persons debt.
Yeah.
So I've definitely kind of shined the light on those in this market, and I feel like, but we are trying to set you up for success, so you don't just, sure, you can sit with that 2%, or like what you're saying, you can keep that place, but you're not cash flowing. Sure, it has small rate, but what does a rate matter if you're losing a bunch of money?
Right. Exactly.
You're losing a bunch of money. So it sounds great, it looks great, but overall, you're if it's losing money, and then over here with them, it's like, yes, you have a 3%. Yes, the payment is good, but because now you have all this debt stacked up, you're barely scraping by. And we can definitely, let's clean that out. Let's wipe out all that debt.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I feel like that's definitely a good strategy in this market. And just, the more that we talk about it, more people will start to kind of help get in that. And I just want to thank you so much for coming in, giving us all the knowledge of 1031. I am going to have all of Aristotle's stuff below. Feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.